In 1971, a psychology experiment went so wrong it had to be stopped in just 6 days, not because of what was supposed to happen, but because of what people became normal people, given authority, and something about the situation changed how they behaved. For decades, this experiment has been used to prove something disturbing, that handing power turns ordinary people into something else. But what if that wasn't the full story? Here's what most people miss. The behavior that emerged from that basement didn't happen despite the system. It happened because of it. And when other researchers tried something similar, without shaping that system, the outcome changed completely. So today, this isn't just about what happened inside the Stanford prison experiment. It's about a deeper question. Was this a discovery or a performance? Let's start with the version everyone thinks they know. In 1971, at Stanford University, psychology professor Philip Zimbardo runs a study on prison behavior. An ad goes out. Male college students needed for a study of prison life. $15 per day. More than 70 respond. 24 are selected, screened to be mentally stable, healthy, normal. They are randomly assigned roles, 12 guards, 12 prisoners. But here's the first detail that changes everything. Before the experiment even begins, the guards are given a briefing. Not rules, not strict instructions, but something more subtle. They are told to create a sense of control, to make prisoners feel powerless, to remove individuality. That single moment quietly defines the system. The prisoners, meanwhile, are arrested at their homes. Real police, real booking, blindfolded transport. They are stripped, searched, given uniforms. No names, only numbers. Chains placed on their ankles. The guards are given uniforms and mirrored sunglasses. No eye contact, no identity. The experiment is planned for 2 weeks. It ends in 6 days. At first, it feels like a game. People laugh. They test boundaries. But systems don't stay neutral. They start shaping behavior. Day 2, prisoners rebel. They block their cells, push back. The guards respond. They strip them, remove mattresses, isolate leaders. Then something important happens. The guards introduce structure, reward compliance, punish resistance, divide prisoners. The system begins organizing behavior. By day 3, the prisoners change. They stop acting like individuals. They begin adapting. Trust breaks down. They suspect each other. They comply. And the guards, they escalate. Not because they were told to, but because the system made it feel correct. Sleep deprivation, humiliation, control. One prisoner breaks down, or at least appears to. Years later, he admits he was acting because he understood what the system expected. This is the first crack. By day 5, multiple prisoners are released. One forgets his own identity, refers to himself only by number. Even Zimbardo stops being a researcher, becomes part of the system. By day 6, the experiment is shut down. The conclusion was simple and powerful. Ordinary people, placed in positions of power, become abusive. This idea spreads everywhere, in psychology, in media, in explanations of real-world events. But there's a problem. Years later, researchers revisit the data, and what they find changes the story. Guards were not neutral. They were influenced, encouraged to be tough, guided toward behavior. This is experimenter bias, not forcing actions, but shaping expectations. And once expectations exist, people perform them. Not all guards were cruel, only some. Others resisted, helped prisoners, stayed humane. If the system automatically created cruelty, why didn't it affect everyone? Another issue, Zimbardo was not just observing, he was inside the system, acting as superintendent. The experiment was not just measuring behavior, it was participating in it, and even the participants may not have been random. The ad itself attracted certain personalities, people interested in authority, control, structure. So now the question changes. Was this behavior natural or constructed? In 2001, researchers ran a similar study to test it. The BBC prison study. Same idea. Guards, prisoners, controlled environment. But one key difference. No coaching, no subtle pressure, no script. And the result? Completely different. The guards didn't become abusive. They became uncertain, disorganized. The prisoners? They unified, built identity, resisted together. By day 6, They overthrew the system. Same structure, different expectations, different outcome. So the result wasn't what the Stanford experiment seemed to suggest. The guards didn't become abusive. The prisoners didn't break down. And nothing about the people was different. What changed was the situation around them. Without pressure, without a clear model of how to act, the guards didn't turn into authority. They hesitated. The prisoners, on the other hand, did the opposite. They organized. They built a shared identity. And that gave them strength. So this points to something important. People don't automatically become cruel when they are given power. They need a direction, a sense of what that power is supposed to look like. And when that direction isn't there, the behavior doesn't form in the same way. That's why the outcome here was completely different. Another study reinforces this. At the University of New South Wales, researcher Sydney Lovibond runs multiple versions of the same system. Lovibond designed something more controlled than either Stanford or the BBC prison study. Instead of running one simulation, he ran 3 versions of the same prison at the same time. Same setup, same type of participants, but one key difference: the rules. 60 volunteer participants, 4-day experiment, 3 different prison regimes. Regime 1, standard custodial. Guards were told to maintain authority, enforce rules, and stay in control. This was closest to the Stanford setup. Regime 2, individualized custodial. Guards still had authority, but were told to treat prisoners with respect and not strip their identity. Regime 3, participatory. Here, guards were told to encourage responsibility and cooperation, creating a more collaborative environment instead of strict control. One system produces conflict. Now here's what happened. In Regime 1, the standard custodial model, the pattern looked familiar. Guards became more controlling. Tension increased. Prisoners pushed back. Conflict grew. It looked exactly like what people expected, but in Regimes 2 and 3, something changed. Same kind of people, randomly assigned, no difference in personality or background, and yet, their behavior was completely different. Interactions became calmer, more cooperative, more stable. The hostility that seemed natural in Regime 1 simply didn't appear. Not because the people were different, but because the structure didn't demand it. Lovibond's conclusion was simple. Hostility and conflict in prisons don't come from who the people are. They come from how the prison is set up. Same people. Different environment, because if cruelty is truly inevitable, if it naturally comes from giving people power, like the idea suggested by Philip Zimbardo's Stanford experiment, then there's nothing to change. We blame human nature, and we accept the outcome. But if cruelty comes from how a situation is designed, from the rules, expectations, and pressures built into it, then responsibility shifts to the people who design those environments. Every prison, every workplace, every place where authority exists. Lovibond didn't just observe behavior, he showed something much more important. Change the design, and you change the behavior. Completely different outcomes, and this is where it becomes important. Not just academically, but in the real world. This is where everything connects. The Stanford experiment may not have been perfect science. It may not even have been a true experiment. But it revealed something real. Not about human nature, but about systems.